If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and become part of this community. Oh, and also, go cop that fresh merch and listen to my new songs in the description. People are mad about this, but I don't really see the problem. And I want to know what y'all think in the comments down below about the stuff that we're talking about today. Because today, we're again talking about Her Loss. It's not going to be like, first week sales or anything like that. It's more going to be about the creation process behind the album. Because Drake and 21 Savage sat down and talked a little bit about how they wrote verses also for each other, which a lot of people are like, Ghostwriter alert, but I don't really see the problem. So today, we're going to break that down. Let's get straight into it. So Drake and 21 Savage sat down with Sirius XM, 42 Sound, and they did a little interview concerning Her Loss and the creation process behind it. There's a lot of different clips on Twitter. For example, Drake, among other things, also confirmed that CLB, Honestly Nevermind, and Her Loss are a trilogy, but that calls for a whole separate video because a lot of people thought that, but we never had the confirmation, so be subscribed for that video. But today we're going to talk about what they said about writing verses for one another, which is also a very sensitive topic, especially when it comes to Drake with all the Ghostwriter allegations that he had to endure over the course of his entire career. But this, I think, is actually pretty wholesome. So let's look at this. So it starts out with 21 just kind of jumping straight into it. After about 20 minutes of just talking about the album, 21 reveals, "That's why I say you just different, even with the way you create and the way you do stuff, because I'ma go in the booth and I'ma rap. I know how to do that, but structuring and knowing like, all right, now we don't need no hook on this one, but 21 needs to do it like this. I ain't gonna cap. Drake wrote some of my verses on this album. These facts. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Drake helped me with some of the verses on this album." And I don't think there's anything, inherently wrong with this. If two people are coming together on an album, then they are obviously also helping each other with the writing. They want this thing to be as much of a synergy and chemistry between the two as they possibly can. And if everybody's just doing their own thing and not really coming together and being like, okay, maybe change that so it fits better to the stuff that I'm doing, then the album will probably not be as good as if they're creating it together. And so in itself, I don't see a big problem with this. But as I said, a lot of people on Twitter and everywhere immediately jumped on this clip and were like, they're ghostwriting for one another. But I think in the case of you doing a collaborative album, it's really not a big problem. And as he said, maybe 21 is better at just like going in the booth and just, laying down a very hard verse. But Drake is more the guy of like, okay, let's structure this. Let's see how we can figure out the hook right there, stuff like that. So in this case, I think on the album in general, it worked pretty well. Drake then also replied to this and said, by the way, you also helped me with stuff too. So that's how it's supposed to be. Straight up. So just kind of like doubling down on what I was just saying, that if you're doing an album together, that's kind of how it is supposed to be. And then Drake went on to say a couple of more things which I thought were really wholesome, but were also like, giving a little bit of more insight into how they were creating this album. So let's look at those. He went on to say, "What I'll say is like one of the most intense conversations I ever had was just like, and of course I've dealt with this stuff my whole career, people being like, oh, people made you, they wrote your songs for you and all that bullshit. And obviously I think I let it affect me more than it should have because I know the work I put in. Ultimately, one of the most intense conversations I ever had was with somebody where I'm like, yo, why is it always us doing for you? And then when I say us, I mean all of us, like this whole generation, the hood, the street guys that you claim you love or this or that. I don't like that one-sided stuff, I just feel like weird. It just feels like all we do is give with energy, performances, songs, writing, and whatever. And then what? What's left for us? And I think maybe this is a little bit of like a subjective thing that he's coming from. He's saying like, oh, but I give it so much, I put in so much work. And that is, by all means, very true. Drake is a very hardworking guy, at least earlier on in his career. Now it just seems like he's doing whatever he wants and putting 9 pregnant emojis on a cover. But there's definitely some truth to what he's saying, and I respect the dude. And then he's saying, I didn't quite get what he was getting at with the why is it always us doing for you, and then meaning the us from the younger generation or like this whole generation. I don't quite get that. Maybe he's getting at older generations, kind of like putting that blame on him for not writing his own raps. I don't know exactly what he was trying to get in here. He expressed himself very, not clearly, but I get what he's trying to say. And I think that's true even though in hip-hop this is the case. It's not like that in any other genre, but having ghostwriters just, takes a lot of respect off of you, because in hip-hop it usually was, not as much anymore, but about the bars, about the way you put words together, and that's usually what also determined how good of a rapper you were. That's why we respect Jay-Z, that's why we respect Nas, that's why we respect Kendrick. So I know what he's saying, but maybe he's looking at it through like a little bit of a pop mainstream, lens, but I get what he's saying, as I said. And then he continued to say, it's like what you said about me, I can't be that character. Not only am I coming to do an album with you, I'm coming to Freaknik, I'm coming to be with your family and stuff, because I just have a place for you in my heart where it's just, this stuff matters to me. It's not just about me. Like, I'm more excited for this album of what's gonna do for us, not what it's gonna do for me. That's the biggest thing. And this I thought was very wholesome, him saying that. Now, I don't think that 21 and Drake were together at Freaknik. I don't remember that happening. Maybe they were, I don't know. But it's just him saying this and being like, yo, if I do an album with you, it's not going to be on some like just business stuff where we just send verses back and forth and maybe hit the studio together a couple of times because we want to capitalize off of each other's fan bases. But it's more like, yo, I want to do this with you. I want to see how you live, how you create, and then maybe we can do something together and kind of exchange that energy that both of us have. And I like that. I think it's very nice and very wholesome that he also touched on that, because maybe that sometimes gets lost when people are just like, oh, that made sense for them to do an album together because 21 fans are also Drake fans, and now 21 is really big on Spotify. So I like that he touched on that. I think it's funny, and this is something I found maybe a little contradictory in his statements, just a little critique at Drake. In the statement before that I showed you where he was like, concerning the Ghostwriter stuff, he at the end he was like, what's left in it for us? Yeah, well, maybe being really rich and making tons of money off of it, like that's in it for you. But then in the next one being like, nah, the money doesn't even matter like that, I'm just trying to build that connection with the other person. Maybe a little ambivalent right there, but I get what he's trying to say. I kind of understand the points he's making. I just wanted to say that statement from the one before where he was just like, what's in it for us? Yeah, like your whole career and being fucking rich. So that's what went down with the 21 and Drake interview, or like a little combo they had about the album. Let me know what you think about this. I definitely think it's interesting to hear about them also writing verses for one another, about hearing about the whole creation process behind this and how they work together, how there's also a big personal connection right there and it's not just all business. Definitely was interesting to hear that. And as I said, there's definitely another video coming detailing the trilogy of CLB, Honestly Nevermind, and Her Loss, because there's also something very interesting that we can get at. So let me know what you think about this, all your thoughts, all your comments, anything you got on this in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media, and most importantly, join my Discord in the description. Until the next one, you'll have an incredible day, and you'll take care.